The internet wants you to get a hobby in 2025. Let's discuss. Welcome back, everyone. Today's video is going to be more of a chatty style video, so I brought out the microphone to help get me through this one, because in today's video I'm not going to be doing my makeup or getting ready together. I just wanted to sit down and talk about a topic that I found a little bit interesting. So I did this in a few videos recently. I've talked about pink collar jobs and how that's not just a trending social media term. I've done a few videos now about what social media has made normal, and someone left me a comment and said that they were really liking the style of video, and it was kind of like a get informed with me video. And I thought that was a really cute idea for some videos that I could add in amongst my usual beauty videos as well. But one thing that I have been seeing across my feed, especially on my YouTube channel, like when I'm even on my homepage, not just in subscriptions, but I'm just kind of scrolling the internet to see what's going on, what are people talking about, I keep seeing girl get a hobby, hobby girl era, how to get hobbies in 2025, 80 hobbies to try, trying hobbies for a week. And I'm like, all right, what is going on? Why is everyone talking about hobbies right now? And so I decided to look into it a little bit more. And while I was doing my own research, I also started to ask my friends, hey, what is your hobby? And to be honest, I was a little shocked at how many people said, I don't think I really have a hobby, because it was something that I was saying myself too. I don't really think that I have a hobby. So then I started asking more, why do you think you don't have a hobby? And I had quite a few people tell me they just don't have time for a hobby. So then as I'm doing my research and I'm kind of diving a little bit more into this subject, I stumbled upon a few interesting things that I wanted to share about in today's video and how I feel like it relates to hobbies, especially the rise of entrepreneurship and how that's kind of become the death of having a hobby. So I've seen a lot of people talking about feeling that hobbies have become extinct because of the rise in popularity of doom scrolling as well. If doom scrolling is not a term that you have heard of, it's basically just where you sit and you scroll on your phone for hours at a time and you do nothing quite productive with your day. And I know for me, I fall into that so much. I was like, can I say one of my hobbies is doom scrolling? I don't think that's a good thing. But there's so many times where I will just sit on my couch and I will get lost in scrolling. Now, of course, social media is also one of my jobs. I am a full-time content creator. So sometimes when I'm scrolling on social media, I'm looking for videos like this. I'm looking for videos that will inspire me or spark something to think this is something that I could sit down and talk about. There's plenty of times I'm looking at other people's titles. I'm looking at people's thumbnails to see what can I do better for my videos. I watch videos so I can see how is editing styles changing and how should I learn to edit those style of videos myself. So there's a lot of different things, but then of course I'm also looking for fashion inspo. I'm looking for recipe ideas to make at home. I'm looking for new book recommendations, makeup recommendations, whatever it may be. But there's definitely a lot of times where I have thought I have been on my phone way too much today. I've mentioned in a previous video about how when I charge my phone during the day, I will put it in a different room and I will not let myself go get my phone until it has been completely charged. And the pull that our phone has on us is quite scary sometimes. One of my girlfriends, I was at dinner the other night, one of my girlfriends said, I forgot my phone at home, and the way the table gasped, it was like an earthquake went through the restaurant. We were like, are you okay? Are you well? Are you going to survive? Me, I was like, how are you going to get home? I don't know directions at all. I was like, is she going to make it home? How'd she make it here? I had so many questions, but our phone definitely has a very large pull on us. And I know I speak for myself and I speak on behalf of a lot of people that I talk to. And then of course, videos on social media. As I've been looking through these videos on hobbies, I keep seeing stop scrolling, stop doom scrolling, 80 things to do to be more productive, 50 hobbies to try to be more interesting, that sort of thing. Because when you ask someone, what did you do today? And their answer is, I scrolled on my phone for 4 hours. Instead of like, I tried this, I gardened, I look at this blanket that I crocheted by myself, I read an interesting book, I went to a dance class over here, I went hiking at this great place, you should try it. When I started seeing the videos of like how hobbies can make you more interesting, I was like, well, that is so true. Because again, going back, like, what are you going to say to someone? Like, I scrolled a bunch and like, here's some of the videos that I found. Like, I scrolled a bunch and started to feel a little bit less than compared to all the people that I watched on the internet, versus doing something maybe productive with your time, fun with your time, you learn something. you got to hang out with your friends, something along those lines. When I started to see more and more videos talking about how hobbies should be essential, I was like, I think this is kind of my own wake-up call. I need to make sure that I have hobbies in my life as well, because I don't want to be a boring person. I want to be an interesting person. I want to be able to have fun conversations and tell people about all the fun things that I've done, right? So one thing that led into that discussion was talking about burnout and how popular of a term burnout is these days. Burnout is also something that I have definitely dealt with myself. I have been a full-time entrepreneur for the past 10 years, almost 11 years now, I think it has been. And I know for me, because I work for myself, I kind of feel like I don't really get any time off. And especially I think because I work in social media, where social media doesn't turn off. It's not even like, and I'm gonna say this, it's not like I own a business where I'm there from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and the business closes and I go home. Now I do wanna say a lot of people who own businesses like that, they're doing stuff before they're actual in the physical business, they're doing stuff after the business and all of the things. But working in social media, it never stops and you always get to be on your phone, and we already have a pull to our phone. So for me, I have definitely struggled with burnout over the years of not having a good work-life balance. It is something that I have tried to find the last several years and do a better job at. And I know a lot of people that I talk to that are also entrepreneurs say the same thing. They really struggle with burnout. They struggle with work-life balance. They don't feel like they have hobbies, and they feel like they could work all of the time. So as I started to ask my friends, what are your hobbies? And I had so many people come back to me and say, I don't really know. Or so many, like the number of blank faces that I had looking at me, I was like, and you know, some of my friends were like, I like to watch YouTube videos, but they also like to watch YouTube because they also do YouTube. So again, they're looking for inspiration and they're seeing what's going on. And so another thing that I realized as we were struggling to come up with our hobbies was there was a lot of hobbies that we have that we've also somehow turned into a form of income. We've turned that into an income stream. So like, yes, it's a hobby and yes, it's fun. But like for me, I would always say like my number one hobby is reading. But I also read as part of my job. I'm a book blogger. That's how I started my career in social media. So I agree to get books from authors and publishing houses, and I agree to review them on my website and also on Amazon. And now I usually make a little short form videos about them as well, like reviewing the books. And then I started a second YouTube channel that is focused on books and healthy habits. So I do book hauls over there, book reviews. One of my last videos was a reading vlog. I think I have a book haul coming up over there of the last like 10 books that I've received. So it's like, I do definitely still consider reading my hobby, but sometimes reading isn't just for fun. So then there was that kind of, that balance that you have to find of still having hobbies that you enjoy doing, yet somehow on the other hand, you're still able to monetize them in some way and include them in part of your career. Again, that is for a limited number of people. I do live in the city of Las Vegas, which is has a very entrepreneurial spirit, I will say. It's one of the reasons I was drawn to the city, being an entrepreneur for so long. I feel very inspired living here. I feel very motivated living here. I love surrounding myself with like-minded individuals. I always say I think it's so important who is in, you know, your circle of friends. And for me, again, I kind of surround myself with that energy, and I feel like it really matches me. It makes me continue to want to stay focused on business. I don't really let myself get sidetracked a lot because I have so many people in my life that I watch doing the same thing, and they inspire and motivate me every single day. But I do want to say that that is like a small, you know, a small number of people that I'm talking to where it kind of falls into that. But even more so, when I talk to people who are in traditional employment, sometimes some of those people are trying to take their hobbies and find a way to monetize them. Whether it be creating a whole small business, whether it's doing a few things on the side in order to make more money. That kind of falls into the burnout section as well, because when we feel like we're working our, you know, say our 9-to-5 job, and then we're coming home and we have these hobbies, but now we're trying to make them into a side hustle, then we can eventually get burned out that way. I'd love to know if you fall into any of these categories, whether you're someone that works a traditional job and has a hobby that you've maybe turned into a side hustle, or that is something that you want to actively pursue, or if you are on the entrepreneur side and you don't feel like you have a lot of hobbies, or maybe you're on the entrepreneur side and you still feel like you have a lot of hobbies and you feel very fulfilled, please drop those in the comments because I would love to read that for myself. I'd love to know if you do have several hobbies and you enjoy doing them and you feel like you have a good work-life balance as well. Like, I would kind of love to know what bucket that you feel that you fall in. So speaking along the lines of entrepreneurship, this is one thing that I found really interesting as well. And this was a line from Forbes that said entrepreneurship has surged since the pandemic. And when I was trying to do some of my research, because I'm hearing a lot of people say they don't have hobbies. I'm hearing a lot of people say that they have burnout. I'm hearing a lot of people say that they are wanting to start their own businesses, or again, working on those hobbies that became side hustles because they want to work for myself. Kind of one of the underlying things that I kept hearing was people want to work for themselves more. And so I thought, okay, hold on, let me look into that. So then that's when I found the entrepreneurship has surged since the pandemic. Also read lines like pandemic has rebooted entrepreneurship. And then I was on the US Treasury website and I found some of these statistics that I will read to you. Small businesses created over 70% of net new jobs since 2019. Another one is about how entrepreneurship continues to surge. The United States is averaging 430,000 new business applications per month in 2024, 50% more than in 2019. Entrepreneurs are also growing more diverse. 43% of self-employed Americans are female, more than ever before. Black, Asian, and Hispanic shares of self-employed Americans are also near all-time highs. That last line I also thought was so interesting because that was something that I didn't know. Which I mean, I guess sometimes I feel like I kind of like kick myself if I feel like I don't know so many things. Like going back to the pink color job video, I was like, I had no idea a pink color career was a thing. I thought it was a trend on social media, and I kept saying it in the whole video, I feel so silly, I can't believe I didn't know that. And so many people were like, we didn't know it either. And like, there's, you know, people can't be expected to know absolutely everything, but it's when you do see something or hear something, it really just takes a couple of minutes to look it up. I mean, for me, you know, I see get a hobby is trending, hobby girl era is trending, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then I asked a few questions and did like 3 Google searches and was like, wait, now I'm learning a whole bunch of other things. Because one thing that I found really interesting about the small businesses, how more are female and more are minorities, I think that really shows to like almost like we want to feel more in control, and maybe we don't get that in traditional employment, or we don't get the same chances in traditional employment. Now, one thing that I did find interesting that this article also touched on was that banks sometimes are still not always the fairest when it comes to lending for female-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses. And that's just something that I want to point out. Again, it kind of goes back to the pink collar job as well, but that there is still not full, what I would say, equality when it comes to something like that. So I do think that it's even harder, especially as someone who is a small business owner and is a female. I do think that it is harder for us to be able to start businesses and get the same access to funding, the same access to certain opportunities as someone who is male might have. It's just something that we still see today that is not totally equal yet. So that is one thing that I wanted to point out. So to me personally, when I read that those numbers are increasing, it actually made me more excited, because it just made me think like, no matter what, and even if we don't have the same access to these opportunities, or you know, sometimes the lending that we need to be able to sustain a small business or start a small business, like we're still going after it, and we're still trying to take control of that and take control of our future. And that to me was something that was really exciting. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. That it was saying in the article in Forbes is that people feel that the traditional job market is less stable. It is more prone to economic disruptions, more prone to mass layoffs. I know that has been in the news very recently. And just overall, it doesn't feel as stable over when you control your own business. Now, as someone who is a small business owner, and I did come from traditional employment. So again, I left my job in 2014. So yeah, so it'd be about 11 years. So in 2014, I left my job. I had been working for about the past 8 years at a hospital. So I went full-time self-employment then. And it is very hard, because to me, like, you also don't have, sometimes like you don't have a stable paycheck, especially when you're first starting out. You never really know what it will be. And even now, working in social media, it's like some months are better when it comes to AdSense on YouTube. You know, some like over the years, we've been able to figure out, okay, December is usually a really high month for us. January is usually a really low low month for us. Back to school is usually a high month for us. Like middle of summer, usually not as much. So you can kind of figure out the patterns like that, but it still doesn't make it necessarily stable. And compared to traditional employment, I still knew that I was getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. I also had things like benefits. That is something when you're self-employed, you don't have benefits. There's a lot when it comes to our taxes that freaks me out every single tax season. I'm like, don't know if I'm doing my taxes right or wrong, right? But especially when it comes to benefits, having to pay for your own healthcare every single month has become increasingly expensive, to the point where I know a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners do not carry health insurance because they cannot afford it, because it is something that we have to do on our own. So there's pros and cons to everything. There's, you know, silver linings and downfalls to everything. Those are just a few things as someone who's, you know, been self-employed for so many years that I see. Even working in social media, I know sometimes I feel a little bit at the mercy of like an algorithm, but I'm sure there's a lot of like small business owners that own like shops and stores that they kind of feel like at the mercy of a handful of different things as well. So again, this is where I think the comment section will be really interesting. If you are a business owner yourself or an entrepreneur yourself, like what would you say are some of the things that you feel is unstable in your career? Because I see it both ways. But definitely when I read that the traditional job market is seeming less stable, that's so true. You know, I have heard from a lot of people who've been laid off from their jobs that it feels very like, you know, a business doesn't care about you. You know, corporate America doesn't care about you. You're just another number. And even though you can pour your heart and soul into that company for so many years and do good things and make them money and be the best employee and don't take days off and be the team leader, at the end of the day, business is business. And if they need to let people go for whatever reason it may be, then you are probably going to be considered for that chopping block. So I know that I've talked to a lot of people over, you know, the past several years of my life that felt very blindsided losing their job, felt it was very unfair for them to lose their job. And it's still happening today. And so I think what I have been seeing over the last few years, as the traditional job market has gotten more and more unstable, that people are turning to self-employment because at least they can control that. And it makes them feel like they have, you know, that little bit of control versus, you know, sometimes working traditional employment, you don't know from day to day if you're going to lose your job or not, for a reason that could be fair or unfair. This next part too, I also thought was very interesting, reading some statistics, and these were from the Forbes website. So 93% of current and aspiring business owners cited meaningful work as their primary reason for starting a business, surpassing 87% of those who are motivated by money. This I felt was very interesting. And then this line, again, this is coming from the Forbes article. Personal fulfillment and impact are valued over financial gain. 93% of current and aspiring business owners cited meaningful work as their primary reason for starting a business. So this goes into one thing. Again, I'm speaking to you as a social media influencer. I'm also an independently published author. For me, it's so funny when I see people say that influencers only do this for the money. Because pretty much everyone is going to be working a job that gives them a paycheck, because you need money to survive. You need money to live, you need money to eat, you need money for a roof over your head. So basically everyone, with the exception of, you know, the small percentage that don't have to work, we love it for them, shout out, we are working because we do need to make money so we can live our lives. Okay, so that's the main thing. So whenever I typically always get confused when people are like, you only do this career for the money. I'm like, huh? Because to me, I have so much personal fulfillment and feel like I'm doing meaningful work through my career. And I'm gonna go back and touch on the hospital job that I worked at. So I worked for the VA hospital. It's a little bit more of a personal story, but I worked for the VA hospital for 8 years. Like I said, I started working there while I was still in college. And I worked a variety of different departments. I worked all on the administrative side of things. One of the reasons why I wanted to work there was because I have family in the Army. And to me, it was like a very small way of like giving back to the soldiers, right? Like in my mind, that was like my very small contribution of like how I can help and how I can do things. And I was very active in my role at the hospital. I did a lot of volunteer work with the hospital, and I personally felt very fulfilled by my job. I also made really good money, especially for being a college student. Then out of college, the benefits were great. And again, over the years, things started to seem like not as stable as time went on. I started to see a lot of layoffs. I started to see a lot of things of like when people got to a certain high level, all of a sudden I was laid off, and I was like, wow, it seems like people are really working so hard to go up the ladder, and the moment that they're like about to reach that top step, they're just let go. And I'm like, what is that about? And that's something that you hear in corporate America, because once somebody gets to a certain level of salary or a certain number of benefits or a certain number of stock options, they all of a sudden become a liability to the company. This is something I talk about in depth with a lot of my friends who work in corporate America, and how scared they are to keep achieving, because it feels like it makes them more liable to be one of the first to let go from their company. That to me seems so beyond backwards. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around. Shouldn't you want to succeed and keep going? Like, that was crazy. That was a whole other discussion, I guess. But going back to why I didn't quite feel so fulfilled with my job at the hospital was because the last position that I held when I was there is I would essentially make all of the new appointments for veterans that were first coming to us. And it was something that I took so seriously. I spent most of my day on the phone. The last few years of working from the hospital, I actually worked from home because of spacing issues. We were simply running out of space physically at the hospital, and we were taking administrative offices and turning them over to the healthcare side of things. And I would sit at home and I would talk on the phone to veterans all day long. And sometimes I would call and I would say, you know, this is Samantha with the VA. I'm here to schedule your first appointment. I would give them the rundown, and then I would find that so many veterans wanted to talk to me. And I would sit and I would listen to them talk for however long that they wanted to talk. They wanted to tell me stories about what they've been through. They want to tell me stories of why they feel like they need help from the VA now. They just want to tell me about their day. I didn't care. I would sit and listen because I felt like it was the least I could do, right? But then things, unfortunately, because of the spacing issues, started to take a turn at the hospital where we just couldn't keep up with how many new veterans were coming to us. So I was sitting at home now making these phone calls and saying, you need a mental health appointment. I can see you in 4 months. That's the next appointment that I have available. And it was all of a sudden people calling me and just being so disappointed and so frustrated, and me sitting and listening to phone calls about the healthcare system and how vets are being forgotten. I would cry. I'm gonna cry right now. I would cry every single day. I would cry every day because I personally felt like I was failing them, even though it's not my fault. Like I'm literally just there to schedule the appointments and to follow up with them. But I just started crying every single day. And for me, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to leave my job, was because I couldn't take like some of the things that I was being told and the stories. And then of course, you know, some people do turn on me personally because I'm the messenger, and that just is what it is. That's, you know, a very small amount, but like my mental health was truly like breaking, because I also just felt like I couldn't control any of those things. There was nothing that I could do, no matter how many times I spoke to the people above me and was like, what can we do? Like, something has to be different. Like, I can't keep calling these veterans to say, you need an emergency appointment. We can see you in 6 months. I was like, something has to be different. And so that was a big factor of why I decided to leave my job. Like, yes, I had great benefits and I was making good money, but I was not personally being fulfilled anymore at that career. And it was really tarnishing my mental health. So then I went to full-time self-employment in 2014. And I am not gonna sit here and say that my mental health has fared much better since starting to share my life online, because there is a lot of backlash that comes with that. There's a lot of cyberbullying that comes with that. There's a lot of eyes on you that are always watching you to see if you're going to make a mistake and to laugh at your downfalls and all of those other really horrible, cruel things that people can do. But I think for me, when it comes to talking about that, it's almost like more of a control thing. I can control how much I decide to go on my phone and look at my comments. I can control how much I decide to say in my videos. I can control how much I decide to share online. Versus being at the hospital, I had no control over anything. So I think that's like for a little bit for me, even though I still say that this career is still very hard on my mental health, I have a little bit more control over it. So that is what I'll say there. But going back to saying that personal fulfillment and impact are valued over financial gain, that is 100% for me. And with so many people who I know who are influencers or own small businesses, they feel so passionate about what they do. And that is what I think is so beautiful. I could very easily, and there's nothing wrong with this, I could very easily still be doing my hospital job and working from 7 to 3. I could be working from 7 to 3 every single day and making my paycheck every 2 weeks and having someone pay for my health insurance, having someone match my 401k. Are you joking me? I would love someone to be matching my 401k right now, I could be doing that and collecting a paycheck and doing just fine and having no personal fulfillment in that job anymore. There's a lot of people who I know who work in traditional employment and hate their jobs and complain about them all day long and are stressed about them all day long. I very rarely speak to someone who runs their own business who hates it. Yes, there's ups and downs to it. Yes, there's hard days, but we are passionate about what we do. Because to me, it's like, why would we be doing this if we didn't have passion in it? If we didn't feel like we were doing something meaningful, if we didn't love what we do, why would we be jumping through all of the hoops to make it happen? I really loved reading that statistic, and it really stopped me for a second when I saw it. And it's what I wish more people would understand about people who run small businesses like restaurants and shops, clothing stores, things like that. People who are small business owners with hairstylists, nail salons, that they often love what they do. And then we have the rise of the social media influencer, and it's going back to us having a little bit more control over our careers, maybe at times feeling more stable than we did in traditional employment, but we feel something meaningful. I spoke in my pink collar job videos about how being an influencer, I think, is a pink collar job, but I feel like I do important work. Through the books that I write, through the videos that I share, through sharing my life and my ups and downs and its journeys, like that to me is something that I personally feel so fulfilled by every single day. And that's why I've continued to do this job for the last 10 years and strive to do the best that I can and strive to challenge myself to new things and strive to be able to share more with the internet. Again, this is a little bit more of a personal subject, but my desire to connect with people comes from a very young age. When I was 11 years old, I told my guidance counselor at my elementary school that I had been being sexually abused by a family member. And telling that story and sharing it with my close friends at the time, a close friend in that circle said to me one day that because I had came forward and shared what was happening to me, she came forward and shared that she was suffering the same abuse from someone in her family as well. I'm 11 years old, I'm standing in the library of our elementary school, and I will never forget this moment in my whole life. But this girl looked right at me and said, if you had never shared your story, I would have never have told mine. From that day on, I knew that I wanted to do anything that I could to share my stories. And I started doing some speaking at schools. And one of the things that I started to do was writing. I always loved reading, and I felt like I learned so much from books. And I thought, if I can write books and people can be inspired and motivated, just like the Babysitters Club did for me and Sweet Valley High did for me and Boxcar Kids did for me, maybe my books can impact people in the same way. I published my first book when I was in my early 20s and got so much feedback from female readers saying that it did inspire them and motivate them and made them leave bad relationships. And the personal feedback that I got has motivated me to go on to publish 9 novels now, and also to start a career in social media, where one thing that I do is I share a lot about my life. I've shared when I've struggled financially and how I got out of debt. I shared going through a divorce and what that looked like. I've shared the grief journey after I lost my dog Aries to cancer. I've shared moving to a new city and starting over. I've shared getting diagnosed with PCOS and how I was able to get those symptoms under control. So for me, what I do feel like has a lot of meaning. And I wake up every day and think like, what can I share today? And how can I either entertain people? How can I make them think about something new? Same as like what I'm doing with these videos, or what I hope I'm doing with these videos is I hope I'm inspiring you or motivating you in some way, because I have been able to see the impact that it's had on me, and I've been able to see the impact that my words and sharing my stories have had on other people, and it is not something that I take for granted. So for me, personal fulfillment is is valued so much more highly over monetary. I think there's a lot of careers that I could be doing that would make me a lot more money and that would give me a lot more benefits than my current career. But would I feel as happy? Would I wake up every day inspired to do my job? Like, sure, of course, there's always bad days. Like, there are days I don't want to get out of bed. There's days I'm tired. There's days I don't want to pick up my phone. There's days that I don't want to record. Sure, of course. But for the most part, I wake up every day thinking like, the world is my oyster. What can I do today? What can I create today? And that to me gives me so much more fulfillment over going to a job that's just giving me a paycheck. Now, if you are one of those people that has no desire for entrepreneurship and you do just want those paychecks, also a reminder that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because we all need those paychecks. We all need that money to live. So whatever it is that we're doing, that is totally okay. But the statistics here of 93% cited meaningful work as more of a reason than money. That was very eye-opening to me. But where I was going with all of that was people who are entrepreneurs or small business owners that I have talked to typically say that they don't have hobbies because they are so busy trying to make their business work and trying to keep their business going, always thinking 10 steps ahead and all of those things, that they don't feel like they have a lot of time for hobbies. I myself am in there, so this is my reminder that I really want to make sure that I'm focusing on hobbies and things that bring me happiness outside of my job in 2025. Of course, I've watched a lot of videos about here's 80 different hobbies that you can try, trying 10 hobbies this week. And I think one thing that I really want to do is with my second channel is to do a video of trying a new hobby every day for a week, or trying 10 new hobbies in a month, or something along those lines. So please drop any hobby suggestions in the comments below, because I'm going to take some of those from the comments and use them to create a video for my second channel. Again, is this going into I can't have a hobby because I figure out how to turn everything into a stream of income? Perhaps, but I thought that could make for a fun video, and it could get me to try maybe a few new things or things that I know that I already love that I can take you along to do. Just this morning I went hiking. I'm very into hiking. I'm very into outdoors. And to me, that is something that I feel is one of my hobbies. I love walking outside. I love hiking. I live in Las Vegas, and the hiking around here is absolutely beautiful. And even though we're in February and where I'm from in Iowa, it's still too cold this time of year to go hiking. This is where our weather is starting to turn here, and it's another reason why I love it, because I love being outside. Again, I really enjoy reading. I do try to take time in my night routine to read one book that I choose for personal reasons. Like, I'm not reviewing them for a book review, but I just like picked out that book myself and want to read it. So I tried to include that. And then I also really enjoy finding new recipes to make. Again, it's something that I incorporate a lot into my second channel, or I make short form videos of the recipes that I'm making, but it's really fun for me to try to find new recipes, especially since, again, getting a PCOS diagnosis and trying to focus more on my diet, what I can make at home that is a little bit more of a healthier option for me. So that's something that I still consider a hobby as well. Now, there's a lot of other ones. I just wrote down a few that were really popular, like crafting, scrapbooking, knitting, crocheting. Those are really high up there. Of course, like I mentioned, cooking, hiking, reading, like coloring. I've talked about diamond art before, organizing. That's a big hobby for a lot of people. They love to be organizing. I'm like, that's great for them. Playing an instrument, learning a language, gardening, doing physical activities like pickleball. Pickleball is definitely having a moment right now. DIY. And of course, hobbies can also be what's considered kind of like mindless. You know, like I hear some people say, like, I love playing video games because it's kind of just like a mindless activity. I like watching reality TV because I can just kind of like shut off and it's kind of mindless. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We can't be living every single hour of our day like trying to be productive or like putting something out there or moving our mind. Like, sometimes we just need to sit. And sometimes that might be doom scrolling. You know, that can be in there too. At the end of the day, we still need to take time for ourselves every single day as well, and make sure that we're filling our cup up in that way. But I do think that this was a good reminder to focus on the hobby and to not let myself get too consumed with work and always trying to be 10 steps ahead with my job. I would love to hear any hobbies that you have. Hopefully you learned something from this video or something you found interesting. Again, I just started seeing you need a hobby trending and thought, let me look into this a little bit more and let me ask a few questions, and maybe this could be a conversation starter with friends, a family member, maybe got a first date coming up. Ask about hobbies, what hobbies they got. Leave yours in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.